here goes the record in here.
And I'm recording too, or if you give me permission.
Welcome to M2Techcast, a live internet radio show offering the latest news and interviews with the people driving business, technology, and politics in Michigan. Now, your hosts, Matt Roush and Mike Brennan.
Hey, it's Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan.
And we're back with another fun-filled edition of the M2Techcast. And
Yeah,
I'm actually in my office. So
yes, what a surprise! How'd that happen?
Well, I'm putting out the Lawrence Tech Alumni Magazine, the fall edition, and it's just easier to do it here rather than from home on a virtual private network that can be slow and a little balky, and that kind of thing. So I'm in the office for a few days here.
Wow. Okay. Are you all by yourself in the building, or are other people?
No, there's other people here, but I have a door that I can shut and a window that I can open. So, and to venture out into the hallway requires a mask. So I feel pretty secure.
Yeah. Okay.
Plus only about a third of the staff is here right now. And that helps too. So
yeah. And then last week we took off because I came back from vacation, and a couple things. Fred Brown was under the weather. And I came back late in the week, and I didn't get a chance to book the show, so took a week off.
Okay.
We're back, yes.
Yes.
And we have calling in from a distant land, Mele Ostale, who, as a disclaimer, is my digital media partner, my webmaster, and I go to him with advice all the time on technical issues with my computer, which I finally solved this morning, by the way. So
I'm glad to hear that.
good to know. Yes. So what he wanted to talk about is Amazon. They've done kind of well during this pandemic. One of the few companies besides Zoom that has done really well. And so what you wanted to talk about is how they've taken advantage of the pandemic, and why don't you talk, and you might, just Absolutely. As a starter, this may be the first time folks have heard of you, so why don't you, a quick background on your company?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I'm glad to be back on the show. It's always fun to be with you guys. We've done a number of them together. My name is Mele Ostale. I'm the CEO of Smart Finds Marketing. We've been in business for 33 years. We're a digital marketing agency out of Birmingham, Michigan. And of course, when you talk about distant lands, as long as I'm on planet Earth, I think I'm within within reasonable distance.
The geography is irrelevant anymore. I mean,
I agree.
That's in Southfield. I'm in Ann Arbor. You're in Istanbul. So
I agree.
Come on, so
what's the difference?
But anyway,
the only place I don't want to be right now.
Thanks for putting that song in my head again, by the way. So They Might Be Giants too. Okay. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
So,
you're not gonna sing though, are you, Matt?
No.
Oh, good. Thank you. All right. So.
So let me give you guys a quick update here. It's interesting, having been in the digital marketing industry for so long, we're never short of changes, and we're never short of frequent changes. And the pandemic, as it started to hit, and we're in lockdown starting mid-March, Amazon was very interesting to watch, because by the time you got to mid-April, so roughly 4 weeks later, as people are homebound and they need products, they need whatever, everything from small toys to electronics to food, etc. It was mind-boggling as to the amount of shipping orders that were taking place. Amazon was number one on that list, and by mid-April, they hired 175,000 people.
Oof.
To support the warehousing operations. As a matter of fact, just this quick update, that you can read this on Amazon's blog. As a matter of fact, they started off with 100,000. They added another 75,000 a few weeks later. It was 175,000 total by the time we got to mid-April. I don't have any counts as to where they are today, but the numbers, in my opinion, continue to grow, because as the need for warehouse orders increased, they had to they jumped on it. They took the advantage of the situation. Their orders were going up, and needless to say, here we are, whatever, 5 months later, and their revenues are up as well. So from that standpoint, Amazon was already taking, let me just give you a quick interesting background. Amazon was already in the last 5 years taking a lot of notice in the industry. So one of the notice items was this, a year ago, July, for the last 5 years, Amazon's been running what they call Amazon Prime Day. Now, think of Cyber Monday, think of Cyber Friday, think of Black Monday. And then if you think about Alibaba.com, and they have their big one-day event, Amazon started to take a lot of notice in 2019, July, when their sales surpassed Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And all of a sudden, you're seeing that Amazon was starting to take a lot of notice. The pandemic, all of a sudden, they went from wherever they were here to here. And so from a retailer standpoint, if you're in the B2C space, Amazon needs to be on your radar screen. And because of the pandemic this year, Amazon has moved their Amazon Prime Day to October this year. The latest news was it's going to be the week of October 5th. And what we're not clear about is it going to be 1 day, 2 days, or 3 days. There's a variety of speculations. But to be perfectly honest with you, Amazon doesn't announce it either. Prime Day for Amazon is specifically designed for Prime members of Amazon. Prime Day is Amazon deciding on its own what it's going to discount and how heavily it's going to discount. Meaning retailers don't have control of this. However, retailers can take advantage of the volume of visitors coming to the Amazon website. So there's a variety of things that you can do in terms of preparing your store for Amazon Prime Day. And there's a variety of things that you can do to drive traffic to your Amazon retail store. On that note, needless to say, we jumped on the bandwagon too. And on Wednesday, September 9th, we actually have a webinar for businesses around Amazon Prime Day marketing, as well as Amazon marketing. And we'll be covering a variety of topics that are focused on how businesses can prepare for this.
Okay. How do you suggest businesses prepare for it? What are some tips you can offer us now to sort of tease this seminar a little bit?
Well, the teaser would be this: take a look at the products that you're selling. And there, as you can imagine, there's 3 types of sellers on Amazon. It's not just your retail store. You have 3 different levels of Amazon retailers out there. A lot of retailers will go to Amazon, they'll post their product, and what they usually do, especially if they're selling products from a brand such as Adidas, Nike, or whatever, they go to that website and they copy and paste the product's name and description right into the Amazon store. And I think that that's an error. That's a mistake. What you really need to do is revise that so that it's marketing related. It's going to grab people's attention. When Nike posts something about their products on their website, it's not necessarily that somebody's going there to buy something, or if they already know what they're going to buy and they're just going to go do it. On Amazon, you need to catch people's attention. It's you plus whatever, thousands of other retailers that are selling the same product. So be imaginative with your product title, with your description, and also figure out what you're going to do within your store to offer discounts that are outside of Amazon's Prime Day discounts. I think that's how you're going to be able to jump on it. This is one example. There's a variety of other examples that you can do in terms of Amazon marketing.
And then you have your webinar on September 9th, and you're going to be addressing a lot of these things about what retailers,
we will be.
e-tailers, whatever you want to call them, can do.
Yep.
Why don't you talk a little bit about that? Go ahead.
It's going to cover 2 significant topics. One of them is preparing your store in Amazon. However, I will say this: whatever we present at the webinar is not going to just be for Amazon Prime Day. the recommendations we're going to make in terms of setting up your store will benefit you even after Prime Day or before Prime Day, etc. So how do we set up our store in such a way that within Amazon, the marketing is working in your direction? So that'll be one of the topics we're going to be covering. And then this other significant topic will be, how do you drive traffic to your Amazon store? What are the tools that you need in terms of social media marketing, social advertising? Let's face it, within Amazon, there's a variety of advertising options to be able to get people to notice you. We're going to be talking about all these different things at the webinar on September 9th.
And you might want to give that address. Are you going to post an address, or are you going to invite people? How are you going to do it?
Yeah, I mean, if you come to our website at smartfindsmarketing.com, we do have a link there to the registration page. It will be on GoToWebinar. So you do need to register. It's not going to be on Zoom. We do have a presentation, a deck prepared for this webinar, and best to do this on GoToWebinar instead of through Zoom that everybody's been using.
Okay, sounds good.
Cool.
So a little bit about how you help your clients interface with Amazon. You know, what do you view as some of the keys to successfully sort of harnessing this gigantic beast that is Amazon for a small business?
Yeah, I agree.
And you only have 2 minutes to sum that up, by the way.
So just a little topic.
Yeah.
No big
deal.
I'm never short of saying something about digital marketing. So we're a digital marketing company, and we have a team of marketers, meaning that we're following a marketing process, which is a cycle. It has activities, it has tasks. They have to be managed, they have to be measured. The measurements need to be interpreted, and then you got to go around and figure out what are you going to do to improve your process. And so from that standpoint, I think what we're offering is not just, hey, here are the strategies and here's the tasks that you need to do. We as a digital marketing agency are trying to help businesses take advantage of a more holistic approach. Let's take a look at your website. Let's take a look at your Amazon store. Let's take a look at your social communities, your profiles. Is everything supporting what needs to be done so that you can achieve success? Where are your links going to? Are they going to your website, store, which may or may not be valuable? In my opinion, if you're trying to prep for Amazon Prime Day, then you need to drive everybody to Amazon, to your Amazon store, not to your website. You're going to get a better result at Amazon during Prime Day than you will on your website. So variety of strategies that need to be implemented. I think that's where we, as a marketing team, that's where we will flourish to help out businesses on this topic.
We're going to have to stop you there. Why don't you give your website address one more time, Ellie, and folks can dial in.
Sounds good. It's smartfindsmarketing.com.
Okay.
Well,
thanks very much, Maile Ostalay from Smart Finds Marketing in Birmingham and today in Istanbul. We'll be right back with another segment of the M2Techcast. For right now, it's Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan.
And you're watching at PodcastDetroit.com and MITechnews.tv.
Thanks, Bailey.
Talk to you guys later.
As a Lawrence Technological University graduate, you're not only marketable, you're worth more. Yes, more. According to Payscale.com, when it comes to graduate salaries, LTU is in America's top 100. Be invaluable. Be more. At LTU, possible is everything.
Salaries of Lawrence Tech grads are among the highest of any university in America. Plan a campus visit to meet with counselors, faculty, and coaches. Why wait? Find out more at ltu.edu.
What do you get at Lawrence Technological University? Everything. Great labs and studios, supportive professors, plus a full campus life, NAIA athletics, and all the software you need to succeed. Be smart. Be more. At LTU, possible is everything.
Salaries of Lawrence Tech grads are among the highest of any university in America. Plan a campus visit to meet with counselors, faculty, and coaches. That guy. Why wait? Find out more at ltu.edu.
Hey, it's Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan.
And we're back with another segment of the M2Techcast. M2Technews.tv with a longtime friend and associate, Gary Erickson. Gary, how you doing today?
Good. How you doing, Matt? How you doing,
Good,
Mike?
thanks.
So is it nice and cool down in Clearwater today? Probably only 95 or so, right?
Well, I live in Sarasota, so I don't know
Oh,
about
Sarasota.
Clearwater.
Okay,
It's like 91 or 92 on the
Ah.
water, so it's a little warm and a little humid.
Yeah, it's almost.
We got the same thing going on here, I think.
Yeah.
It's just about the same.
We have your Florida weather in Michigan today. It was really
Well-
nice for about a week there, and now the high 80s and low 90s have come back.
So we see 90 to 91 almost every day down here. It's sort of boring, and then we get a thunderstorm about 3 or 4 every afternoon.
Yep.
Yeah,
I remember that.
good old Florida. So anyway, what we wanted to have Gary talk about, or at least update, is he's the managing partner for Executive Search Partners, and this is where you can do a shameless plug, Gary. So tell the audience exactly what you do, and then we'll continue on. Oh, we lost Gary there. Oh, he's going to put on his hat or something.
I'm sorry. I just I noticed my background sucked, so I had to do something
All right.
about that. So, on live TV at the best. Sorry,
does.
what shameless plug? Executive Search Partners is a IT focused search company. We do nationwide searches in information technology, mainly senior level positions, and we've been recognized by Forbes as one of the best in the U.S.
Okay.
Great.
And so I think we had you on a couple of months ago. We were talking, and one of the things you do, of course, is C-level folks, technology C-level folks. And so when I posed the question to you a week or so ago, what has changed? You said not a heck of a lot, other than the competition for jobs is even more fierce than it was before, right?
Yeah, well, you've seen a lot of layoffs in the Southeast Michigan area, but I was looking at statistics today. Down in April, the total jobs were down like 24%, and they've come back to about 15%. IT is down about 9%. But the reality is that there are a lot of people who are looking for jobs, and then the other side of the equation is how many jobs are becoming available. There's always jobs out there. It's hard to get a handle on what the percentage is, but my estimate is there's about half the jobs available now that there used to be, and most of those jobs are not in the automotive arena.
Okay. So what arenas are they in then?
Yeah, I was going to say, which begs the question: where are the jobs? You know. So.
Well, there's a whole sort of we've all been hearing about which segments are up and which segments are down, and if you focus on Michigan only, what I've been seeing by looking at Indeed and the job statistics is just finance, banking, insurance, including healthcare, media. There's some automotive jobs out there. The ones that are most interesting are the ones in the electric car arena.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that makes sense, certainly. How about autonomy? Is there still a push toward that?
Now, to me, electric car includes autonomy. Autonomous driving.
Right. So that's the self-driving part too.
Yeah, they're actually different, but I mean, it's just one's the powertrain and one's the connected vehicles is the one that's going to be a whole lot even more complicated than electric vehicles. I mean, it's really the battery technology that's holding back electric vehicle acceptance, but that'll change over time. The connected vehicle, that's a whole nother breed of cat. That's where you got to have all these devices in the vehicles and the roads and everywhere else. And I don't know whether Matt and I or you are going to see that in our lifetime, but who knows? It might happen. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. They're different. I just happen to think of electric cars and autonomous driving simultaneously because I've got a Tesla and I've got pretty good autonomous driving capabilities.
Okay, gotcha.
So you guys recruit all over the country. Is there, probably Michigan may not be a hot one because the automotive industry is down, but are there states that are particularly hot hiring, that sort of thing right now, or not?
Yeah, I don't know all of them, but I know that the New York City area, because of the banking and insurance and some of the consulting industries headquartered there, is pretty good. I think New England's doing okay. We've seen the San Francisco area, especially with the technology companies, seeing tremendous amount of growth. It's still tough to get people out there. If you looked at we all know which ones are down. You don't want to be in the cruise industry or the airline industry, or you don't want to be running hotels, right? Those are really down. But if you look at the ones that are going up, online retail, I don't know how much of that we've got in Michigan. You've got telemedicine, maybe a little bit of that because people can do that kind of thing, but the people providing the technology are in California probably. Life science and pharma. We used to have Pfizer in Ann Arbor. I don't think we've got much and we used to have a lot up in Grand Rapids. I don't know how much of that we have left in the state.
Well, they're more healthcare centers now rather than biotech centers, although there's still a lot of biotech in the state. If you look at the reports on what investors are investing in, typically more than half of it is biotech or biopharma or whatever you want to call it related. So,
and those are in what parts of the state?
Well, that'd be Kalamazoo, Grand Rapids, Ann Arbor, Detroit, a little bit in Lansing. Kalamazoo still has ex-Pfizer presence over there. I'm trying to remember who bought. Pfizer might even still be in Kalamazoo.
Oh, well, Pfizer is still manufacturing in Kalamazoo. In fact, that is Pfizer's largest single manufacturing plant in the world. Is the one in Portage there, just south of Kalamazoo. Okay. But they're not doing the kind of R&D there that they used to do. That's what's changed.
Yeah, I think that all got moved to Jersey or something, didn't it?
Yeah, the only kind of Pfizer R&D I'm aware of in Kalamazoo is in their veterinary side. They've got like an experimental farm outside of town, so they're growing super cows or something. I don't know, but
all right. So
not really Pfizer.
Let me interrupt one other thing, Mike. I'm sorry, Mike and Matt. One other thing. There's also IT trends overall where there people are continuing to move a lot to the cloud, which reduces the demand for infrastructure and operations people in non-cloud companies, but some people can move over to those, like Secure 24 has got a pretty good presence in Michigan. And then you've got a lot of people doing outsourcing to sort of, if you're a steady state industry and steady state system. So you got these trends that are moving IT in one direction, and then you got trends like digitization, car electrification, and connected vehicle and online delivery and intelligence in products like Whirlpool is doing over in Kalamazoo and other places that are driving in the other direction. So it's a pretty complicated mosaic of where the jobs are.
So since this is an IT-centric listenership, viewership, if someone's looking for a new IT position now, what are the steps that you think they could or should be taking?
Well, thanks. The number one thing is you've got increased competition, so you got to stand out from the competition. And the first thing, there's 3 ways to get a job. You can do it by networking with friends and asking for help, and then ask them for other people you can talk to. You can talk to recruiters, all right, or you can apply online. One of the things we've been recommending to people when they apply to any job is that their resume needs, no matter how you do it, whether it's through a friend that you're talking to, or whether it's through recruiters, or whether it's to online positions, your resume's got to look a lot like you're an exact fit to the job. So if you're in automotive and somebody's looking for a director of application development in a healthcare or an insurance industry, you're probably not going to be able to create a resume that makes you look like a fit, but you can try. People in the online world and other worlds will get so many different resumes from so many different people, and there's so many people looking for new jobs that companies don't need really to look outside their industry.
So what other advice would you give? I mean, considering that jobs are way down, a lot more people are looking for jobs. You were just saying to tailor your resume specifically for that job. Anything else?
Well, the first thing we recommend, if you go to our website, there is a document called 12 Steps for a Highly Successful Job Search that I've mentioned in other of these meetings. We keep it up to date. The last one was done in February of this year. It talks about what you need to do a job search. And the number one thing, if you do get the interview, all right, so first off, you got to network your way into a job. You got to be a fit to the job. Your resume's got to look like it. But if you get there, if you get a chance to interview, how do you stand out from other people? And what we're suggesting is that you spend some time before you go anywhere and create a series of success stories for yourself about things you've done. For example, somebody will say to you in an interview, have you ever done anything like this? And your answer should be, yes, I have, and then launch into a very short, very focused success story. The format we recommend is PAR. What was the problem you were working on? What actions did you take? And what measurable results did you achieve? Now, other people call that a STAR. It's also called a CAR. It's also called a SAR. It's all the same kind of thing. Create these success stories, maybe 5 to 10 a year for the last 5 to 10 years. So you're well armed. So when you walk into an interview, you can give people a good, concise, focused answer.
So be like the old Boy Scout motto, be prepared, right?
That's right. Yeah, you gotta know the industry. You gotta know the people you're talking to. You gotta know yourself. And if you don't know yourself, you're gonna stumble in an interview and walk out of there later saying, "Gee, I wish I'd answered this question differently." So be prepared.
Well, just getting to the interview is challenging enough, right? How many of all? I mean, you were telling us last time you get 1,000 applications for every job. So, if you're culling those down, is there something you pointed out a few things, but I mean, I suppose it varies by the company. But is there something else that folks can do to just get to the interview?
Well, you got to. So most people select people based on the resume. That people send in cover letters and a generic resume that typically doesn't work as well because the resume, people don't read the cover letter. They read the resume. Even if they read the cover letter when they send the resume onward, they don't send the cover letter. The other thing we're recommending is that right at the very top, right, there's a professional summary at the top of the resume, and then right after that, on the top half of the page, put down I can't even pronounce it, qualifications for the position of whatever it is you're applying for, and put 4 or 5 dot points down that speak specifically to the requirements that probably they have posted on their website. And that's a way, that resume then tells people you thought about the position, and you can point out why you are a good fit for that position.
How many of those, let's say, 1,000 resumes actually get to the interview stage? Are we talking 5 or 10, maybe?
If you're going, I don't know how many. I know we're working with a couple of companies who also post online, and they say they get 300 to 500. And they're gonna look at maybe 20 or 30 resumes and pass them by the hiring manager, and they'll probably pick out 10 people or so. That's just rough averages. And we do the same thing. We'll call down we had one search where we actually got 1,500 resumes for a chief information security officer position. And we culled that down and eventually presented, I think, 15 people for that position. The requirements changed a little bit along the way too.
Sure. All right, we got about a minute left, so now it's shameless plug time, Gary. So, folks, you got them all excited. They want to get to your website. Tell them how to do that.
Well, it's searchpartners.com, and there's a section called resources. If you go there, you're going to see a sample resume, which includes the in-resume cover letter that I just mentioned, and our document called 12 Steps for a Highly Successful Job Search. Both of those are, if I don't say so myself, really, really good documents.
Okay, but you did say so yourself, and that's okay, because this is part of the shameless plug. So.
Yeah. Is my M showing?
It is. Yes, very good. And okay, they just announced today that no M football this fall.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I don't think the NFL is going to play either.
No, I mean, what I've seen, and I've been reading a lot about this stuff, is even in practice, people are getting sick because they're touching each other, they're breathing. I mean, how do you not practice football and not breathe on somebody, right?
And you don't know if people are sick. They're not.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Young.
Yeah, it's a lot easier for sports with smaller teams that you can keep them in a bubble. Like a basketball team, you're talking 12 or 15 guys, right? An NFL team, what do they start? They start training camp with 70 some. That's a lot bigger group.
Or 100, I think.
Well, yeah, and they call them down real fast. I think the final 40 or 45 that make the team or something like that.
Yeah, and then a practice squad, right? Yeah.
So
it's still a lot more people than 12 basketball players, though.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Gary Erickson, thanks for joining us today from Florida. And we'll get you on the show again here in the fall and kind of update the story and see where we're at with all this stuff. Nobody knows. But we got a man standing by in that other window there, Fred Brown. He knows, and we'll be going to him right after this commercial break.
See you all.
Lawrence Technological University graduates earn a degree.
Hey guys, how's everything going?
Good. How you doing,
fact,
Fred?
when it comes to
Good.
potential, the
Thanks,
Brookings
Gary.
institution ranks LTU 5th.
I have a little presentation to say where we're
Be rich.
on the
Be
status of
more.
Michigan if
At
you like.
LTU, possible is
And then we
everything.
talk About anything you like.
Salaries of
Okay.
Lawrence
Sound
Tech
good, or you want to go into something
Most of
special?
any university
No,
in America.
let's
Plan a
start off with
campus
whatever you want
visit
to
to meet
start
with
with.
counselors,
Okay.
faculty, and coaches.
How are you
Why wait?
personally
Find out
feeling? I
more
know
at
you were ill for a couple of weeks.
ltu.edu.
Sure.
As
Thanks.
a Lawrence
Yeah.
Technological University
12 days
graduate,
on my
you're not
back,
only
so.
marketable, you're worth more.
But there's a lot of catching up to do,
According
though.
to
Talking to the
payscale.com, when it comes to
So did you get
technology,
tested for
trying to figure
COVID?
out what
America's top
all their
100,
problems.
be invaluable.
Got
Be
delayed
at
for a week.
LPU, possible is everything.
Salaries of Lawrence
So it
Tech
was just the
grads are
flu or
among the
something? It was
highest in
not
any university in
COVID?
America.
No, actually, I think
Campus
it
visit
was,
to meet with
I
counselors,
thought I might have
faculty, and
COVID because I
coaches.
went out with a
Why
guy
wait?
who was
Find out more at
Coming out of break, hang on.
ltu.edu.
and but it wasn't.
Hey, it's Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan.
And we're back with another segment of the M2Techcast. Once again, joining us after a couple of weeks off, he's back from an illness that apparently was not COVID. It was just a plain old cold or something. Is Fred Brown.
Great to be back. Thanks. Yeah, I thought I might have come down with it because I had lunch with a guy who, works at a P3 lab, and he was working with live virus, and we were talking away, and all of a sudden I realized maybe he's asymptomatic, and I came down with some symptoms, but everything's fine now. So it was not COVID. It only took 2.5 days to get the results back. So great job on you, Ben Spark.
Okay.
Yeah, I was up. I took a week off. The last week in July, I went to West Michigan and got around a lot of friends. We even did a beach party, but not too close. And then, so when I got back, I did the COVID test at one of the drugstores, and it took almost a week to get the test back. So I'm thinking, God, this isn't doing me any good, right? So I guess that's one of the big issues right now is there are tests available, but if it takes a week or 10 days to get them back, they really aren't worth much, are they?
No, they're not. Actually, sadly. In fact, one of the main recommendations that we made as a steering committee was to have the government stop paying for tests that take more than two days to turn around. Because what happens is you are exposed. It takes about 5.5 days to get symptoms. So if you have but you can get tested after day 4 if you think you've been exposed and still have a pretty good result. At that point, if it takes 5 days to turn that around, you're only shedding virus from day 2 to day 12. Now, shedding live virus. What we found is that although people shed virus for up to 28 days, generally the live viruses are shed in the first 10 days after this virus gets established, is about day 2. So between day 2 and day 12 is when you can actually, effectively go into isolation and call people and say you've been, possibly infected. Once it gets beyond that, it's useless. And so our steering committee, back to CMS, which is reimburses for Medicare, Medicaid, recommended that we don't pay for tests that take more than 2 days to turn around. Right now, these large testing companies are raking in lots of money for tests that are completely unusable for the general public. So that's a big problem.
Yeah, because it would be 2 weeks tomorrow since I was at my event, and I didn't get my results back till Saturday night late. So I figured people were asking me, how'd your test results come out? And I go, well, I haven't got them, but I said by now I probably should have symptoms, because it would already been about 10 days at that point. And so I didn't. And
yeah.
Not to worry, I guess.
Well, I went and donated platelets at the Red Cross Blood Donor Center in Livonia a week ago Saturday.
Excellent.
And I'm supposed to get, with that, they said it was, they give you a free antibody test when you donate. And they said 7 to 10 business days. I'm like, well, okay, so it's not a test for live virus, it's a test for antibodies. So it's not quite as time critical there.
It's important to find out whether you've been exposed and whether you were asymptomatic. There are numerous examples, sadly now, of people who were asymptomatic, were exposed, had no conditions of COVID, no fever, and have come down with very serious conditions, 2 to 3 to 4 weeks later. Things like Guillain-Barré syndrome, which can cause paralysis. A friend of mine actually came down with that after getting negative tests for COVID live virus, but being positive for the antigen. And there are numerous examples of people with arising with cardiac problems. And so it's very important that you get the antigen test to see if you've been exposed at all. Because even if you're asymptomatic, that doesn't not change the fact that lots of things can happen downstream, and the severity of those downstream impact has nothing to do with your original COVID. So even if you were absolutely not sick, you can have very bad symptoms. If you're very, very sick, you may have no symptoms of other conditions downstream. So it's completely independent of each other apparently right now.
The hot topic now, well, obviously, I think you're on the call when the Big Ten canceled the football season, which I would have been surprised if they would have tried it, tell you the truth. And they were originally thinking, well, we'll just play the empty stadiums. But yeah, I mean, these guys are clearly breathing on each other, and they can't be 6 feet apart. I mean, this doesn't work out in football, right? So I was sort of surprised, but not really, because they're now talking about maybe hopefully next spring, just move it to spring football, which, be nice, because typically as the season wears on, you're freezing your butt off in the stadium. But the other issue going on is schools around the country now are going back. I talked to a buddy of mine who's a teacher down in Florida, and they're starting on Thursday, but they're just doing all remote. They're not doing any in-person stuff. And in Michigan, it's been a real mixed bag. Some are, some aren't. Some are going hybrid models. What are you seeing? Or what's your advice, I should say?
Yeah, so about half the schools are trying to open, and about half of them are trying to do either a hybrid or remote only. About 35% are remote only and 15% are hybrid. So that's sort of the general disposition right now. That could change rapidly. I think what we're going to find is that we're going to have a lot of trouble opening successfully. And when you look at the challenges that we're having in Georgia, Florida, and other areas that are opening earlier than we are, we're going to look back at that and say, we just don't want to take the risk anymore. I think if you have to open a school, we're kind of doing it backwards. The first area that we're worried about is like University of Michigan football. Actually, those are the schools that can probably most afford and best teach people remotely, if you think about it. Whereas it's the young kids who are trying to learn math for the first time and reading for the first time. Those and they don't transmit as much virus because they don't breathe as heavily and they don't have quite the same load, although pretty close, sadly, until the age of 10 of the virus. So if I were a policymaker, I would look very closely at probably trying to do high school, where you have lots of switching of classes and mixing of different people in big hallways. And, we saw that big picture of Georgia, I guess, where they had lots of mixing of people that didn't look good without any masks. I would definitely require masks at all times. And I would try to move towards surgical or N95 masks, not just cloth masks that your mom makes in your basement. And I would also have, once we get testing better, at that point, we'll be able to do this a lot more safely. But right now, very few states are in a position to in fact, really no state today is able to test sufficiently to mitigate a virus and really understand what the spread looks like, unfortunately.
Matt, what's the status with Lawrence Tech? Are you guys going to go all virtual or hybrid? What?
It's pretty much a hybrid at this point, although we have said that we're going to be flexible depending on what happens. You have to be. But all of our graduate courses are going to be online this fall, except for a few engineering labs and architecture studios. And the undergraduates, we are planning on having them come back, but our class sizes are pretty small. We have an 11-to-1 student to faculty ratio. And after freshman year, especially, most of our classes only have 10 or 15 people in. So it's pretty easy to be in a lecture hall with 6-foot social distancing on a basis like that and a mask requirement. We are planning on reopening the dorms and the cafeteria. Unfortunately for the environment, that means going to all disposable everything, basically, in the cafeteria. So, and a lot of box lunches, I would bet. But, right now we are planning on bringing the undergraduates back for in-person classes, although if there's an outbreak, if the numbers start spiking again, we'll have to go back to what we did in March. That's you got to be responsible and safety first. So
yeah, as tricky as it would be to have students in a classroom, having them in a dormitory, I mean, that's a whole nother thing there. I mean, You're sharing everything in a dorm, right?
Right.
And
there's going to be they're laying in massive supplies of sanitizing stuff, and at this point, we're just hoping people are responsible, and don't have big house parties and things like that.
The off-campus housing is even more concerning, actually, because they have even less control in some ways.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Parties and pong and going shopping.
Yeah, and we've got only about a third of our student body lives on campus. The other 2/3 is off campus. So that's
Same as you.
You really can't control what they do off campus, but you just have to hope they're responsible and follow the CDC guidelines.
Yeah, I remember when I was an undergraduate, mingling, as it were. I mean, that was just what you did, right? I mean,
all weekend long, yeah, you bet.
Yes, no mingling this year. So what are you saying? I mean, the superintendent of schools or something would ask you a question. Should we do what? What would you say to him?
Let me show you a little bit of what we're doing right now in Michigan. How does that sound? And because it depends on the state, actually. If I was in Florida, I'd probably say no to every county right now because they're uncontrolled. I mean, it's sadly, even though they're going down slightly, they're out of control. So we'll show that. I put together a little presentation just to sort of give you the data, and then we can talk about it. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
Okay.
So 8, 10, 20, here we are. The world, what does the world look like? Well, you can see that as far as the world goes, that graph on the right-hand side really tells the story, right? I mean, we are just going, we went up fast, March to April. We had a little plateau. We went up fast from June to August. Now we're at a little plateau for worldwide cases. And the question is, what's going to happen next, right? What do the models show? And guess what the models show?
Not good, right?
Yeah, we're going to plateau for a month or two, and then October, November, December is going to be a disaster.
Oh, geez.
So that's really, I'm really worried about November. And if you talk to most modelers right now, they're worried about November. Kind of Thanksgiving to Christmas period, I think could be a really, really bad period for the United States generally, unless we get our numbers down. And as you know, Matt, you sent me this note indicating that 159 epidemiologists signed a note saying that we probably should, kind of quote unquote reset. That really means that we would go into lockdown so that we prepare for a bad October, November. Unfortunately, we're less than 100 days away from a general election where one of the candidates really is counting on the economy to be okay. President Trump is. So we won't do that. But if we didn't have an election and I was sort of an advisor, which I am to several governments, in many cases I'd recommend a lockdown, and we'll see why. So at any rate, here's what it looks like. You can see United States and Brazil basically are a third of the world's problem. So that's not a good thing to be. And this is where we're having the big blowups. Generally the areas of yellow. So if you live in Canada right now, you are 25 times less likely to die of COVID than if you're in the United States. If you live in Europe, you are 10 times less likely to die of COVID than if you live in the United States. And that's a problem. That's a big problem because that means we can't go anywhere. Lots of people will come to us, and they'll actually dilute our problem. But if we go out as a U.S. citizen, most countries are saying, no, we don't want you. I think we can go fly to about 9 countries, including, places like, Kazakhstan and places like that. I mean, it's not places you normally would go. So that's the.
Unless you're Borat. Yeah, right. Okay.
So if we bear in a little bit on the United States, right? See, visit Borat. So if you bear in a little bit on the United States, here's what it looks like. And you can see Michigan actually is caution warranted. And this is where we were back in June. Then we went into dark red for a while. Then we come back out of it. Now we're yellow again. You see the upper eastern seaboard is green. Those states have largely agreed to create a testing environment that allows them to see and manage aggregate testing, which is smart. We should probably think about joining a group like that as a state. But caution warranted means, it means basically what's happened is we've leveled off, but we've leveled off at a very high level. You'd like to be down, you'd like to be down where we were around June 15th, which is our absolute minimum. You can see on June 10th, 2 months ago, we were at 187 cases a day, new cases a day, running average. We went down to a number of 182. You really want to be at a little bit less than that. We've got 10 million. So that means about 2 cases per 100,000. Epidemiologists are kind of, they're arguing between whether it should be 4 cases per 100,000 for several weeks or 1 case per 100,000 for several weeks. But generally it's in that range. And you can see that instead of, leveling off at that level for several weeks, which we would have had to do to represent what Europe has done and other successful countries have done, we went back up again. And now we're at 711 cases per day. So we've increased it by 7-fold, and our plateau is a dangerous plateau. It means that you could go up relatively easily because you've got a lot of potential community spread and a lot of endemic virus in the area. What's happened is the death rates have gone down a little bit, which is great. We've gone from 8.2% or so in the June period to 6.8%, which is good. But we're still in the lowest. We're still in the lowest quartile of performance overall for case fatality rates. So Michigan, if you're in this state and you go to the hospital after being, a case, you've got a much higher chance of dying in that hospital than in other states, sadly. You can see that the death rates generally
is that because we have an older population, do you think, or what are the reasons behind that?
That's a great question. One big reason I'll get to in a second is that we're not as good as at managing our minority populations as other states, and that's a big problem. I'll show you the data in a second. We may not be testing quite as much as some of the other states are either. If you think about case fatality rate, maybe the other states have more negative results. And so our case fatality is a little more concentrated. It's not because we're being overwhelmed. Our current capacity is okay. We're kind of in a yellow stage of capacity, but we're certainly not like Florida or Arizona where they really are a red stage of capacity. So that's not the issue so much as I think the way we're managing our minorities mostly. The newly reported days deaths you can see are about 17 to 21 days offset from the new case rate. So what's happening here at the end right now, we're starting to hop up a little bit. And that's because you can see that we're starting to get to about 20 days, about 30 days after we started to be at our base, and we might move up just a little bit over the course of August. So August, September, the most forecasts are for a little bit of an upswing in death rate for the next kind of 2-3 weeks, but then leveling off. So we're it's a stable high death rate. And this is the issue about the minority cases. You can see that 14% of our population are for the Black population represents 30% of our cases and 41% of our deaths.
Wow.
That 41% is way off, and 30%, it puts us in the bottom kind of 10 states in the country for management. Virginia, North Carolina, Indiana, Wisconsin, Minnesota are behind us. Iowa's behind us, and there are a couple of northeastern states with very small minority populations that are also a little bit higher, but everywhere else is lower than us significantly.
Yeah, so is that lack of access to healthcare, poverty, right?
Yeah. Mostly lack of access, I think.
Underlying conditions. I mean, because
there is
for those two reasons, they haven't been going to the doctor, right? So
it's sort of like compound interest rate. As you put in a little bit of money, you get a beneficial effect. Well, the same thing is in reverse in healthcare. If you don't go to the doctor, even starting at birth, the minority populations are underweight at birth. So you start at that deficit, and this continues to compound over time with access lack and lack of insurance, unfortunately, and lack of physicians. There's some places in Detroit that have one physician for 4,000 residents, and that's a challenge to keep people healthy.
I noticed also you skipped over a chart about where not to reopen schools.
Oh, well, I'll get back to that. I promise.
Okay.
I'll go back to that because that's
okay, all right.
when you see Hispanic and Latino again, percentage of cases are way high. Percentage of deaths aren't so bad, so they apparently have probably a better access and a better outcome than our Black population. But that Black population, we've got to do something about that because that's just unacceptable. So there are a lot of people who are thinking about this. One of the issues is a lot of these populations, the Hispanic and the Black populations, are our most important workers, and there are first line, front line workers who are essential, and we're not treating them right. That's a problem. If you look at this data anyway. So opening schools. Anywhere that's orange, I wouldn't reopen. Schools in that area generally, especially if the larger schools, and if you're talking about small rural schools of less than 100 students in the school, that's one thing. But if you're talking about, you can see, in the orange areas, you've got more than 100 students, you're going to have one of those students with COVID who will transmit it to their friends and to the families and sadly to the teachers and staff who are at higher and higher risk. And you'll have to shut down for 14 days anyway. So what will happen is, have a couple of people coming up with COVID, and you'll have to shut down. So my recommendation is to get ready, do an awful lot of work remotely, and to try to work in cohorts, try to work in having Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Thursday, Tuesday kind of school days, mornings, afternoons. Try to open up the amount of distancing you're able to create. Make everyone wear a mask and hopefully a surgical or N95 mask, not just a mask you make in your basement. And bring lots of hand sanitizers along, and try to keep ventilation up. Right now, one of the things that's concerning is that there was a big study in Korea that looked at aerosolization, and they found that if you are simply recirculating a lot of the air through even more modern HVAC systems, that the COVID virus actually builds up on intake, outtake, and HEPA filters. So if you're not changing HEPA filters out and you're recirculating a lot of the air over and over again, as we do, especially in the winter, to try to save in heating costs, boy, we're going to have lots of problems with aerosolization. And
some of the counties that are the deepest shade of red there are really surprising to me. I know the one at the bottom of the state, that's Branch County. That's a very rural county. Coldwater's the biggest city in it. It's maybe 8,000 or 9,000 people. And then the one up on Lake Michigan, I think that's Oceana County. That's also very rural. And I think the biggest city is Pentwater. That's only a few thousand people. How do these rural areas get so unlucky? Because you don't have the population density.
I don't know. Along the coast, I think that was because of extra traffic on the beaches and so on. Oceana was certainly a possibility to go Muskegon. I don't know down south. Where you see Jackson County also, and then Detroit lit up. But basically that area from Detroit up to Bay City is a hotspot area, and we've got Kalamazoo, Benton Harbor, and we've got Grand Rapids also being Kent County being hot right now. And Escanaba, that area, I don't know what happened up there. It's part of Wisconsin generally is pretty orange, and so it may be a continuation of Wisconsin problems. But that's so yeah. In these areas, what you see is you've got a lot of community spread. And the challenge when you start to then add 15% of the population, which is the population that's going to kindergarten through 12th grade, to the mix with lots of interaction. If you're very successful, the Europeans are able to keep the increase in spread down to 2 to 4%. But those areas that are out of control, it can be as high as 25% increases in spread in those areas, which would be extremely dangerous. That would give us a hard time in Michigan.
We got about 5 minutes left.
Oh my goodness! So anyway, basically you can see we're yellow, which means we're on the edge. One thing we don't have enough of is testing. We aren't testing enough to keep us mitigated. If we have breakouts, we can't identify those breakouts, and we can't control the breakouts, and we don't have enough capacity to get test results back fast enough. And so what's happened is we have a program called RADx, and maybe and the NIH has started this RADx program, and it's Rapid Access to Diagnostics. It's $250 million. Well, they have 7 programs they've moved forward, and I'll tell you, $250 million probably is enough for 2, maybe 3 of them to move forward, based on my experience in ramping up tests. And you can see most of these tests are, so the first one, Mesa Biotech, a handheld PCR technology. Well, that's a blood test. I mean, people can't give themselves blood tests. Quidel is a is a point of care doctor, officer, pharmacy. Again, you've got turnaround time issues and lining up issues. They have to move out of the paradigm of what's out there already and start to think about brand new ways of testing in the NIH and the government. And that means home care. That means home-based testing done with saliva, done every day, done by everybody. That's what they have to get to. And there are some companies out there. Yale just announced a test they think they can get down to about $1 a day, which is based on saliva. Stanford has one also, a company called PredictionRx is developing that test. Again, they're all solid state. They require no reagents. They go right to your cell phone. They read off the result on your cell phone, and then they can transmit it wherever you need it to go in order to give you a passport. Say, yes, this person tested negative, or this person tested positive, and here are all the different contacts they had, and please contact them. Callus, again, multiplex piece, isosomal viral RNA optical detection system under 30 minutes. But again, this is going to be nasal swab. It's going to be complicated for an individual user to do by themselves. Then everything else they're doing is lab-based. And this lab-based is the exact problem Michael was talking about earlier, which was, it took me 5, 10, 12 days to get this thing turned around. And so these lab tests that you have to send out, through the mail or through a distribution company, get the thing tested, and then come back again. That just isn't gonna solve our problem. So unfortunately, we keep making these small, that would have made sense 5 months ago, but now we're in a different situation. We've got to really switch and create different policies. And we're going to look back at this time going, we just made a couple of mistakes, and these mistakes just compound on each other as they go forward.
What we need is somebody to come up with the similar to the home pregnancy test, where we all know how that works. But I mean, you get instant results, right? Wouldn't that be why would somebody not see the value in that and not be working in that, or are they working on that?
They are. They're called laminar flow tests, and GSK has a joint venture with Mammoth, who's down here doing PCR work, and those are tests that would be they're using a brand new technology called CRISPR, and that's an exciting technology, but that's not being sponsored by and pushed by the NIH. It's being pushed by GSK in order to get a pregnancy-like test. There's another group called Sherlock that has the same kind of technology and is also working on that laminar flow test. These laminar flow tests are about 75% accurate, so they're not perfect, but you can do them every day. And if we can get them down to $5 a test, then you're talking about maybe your employer would want to have you take that test every other day, in order to make sure you're safe. And certainly before you take a flight, those kinds of times, you'd like to have a test like that immediately available. Even if it isn't perfect, at least you can get a better sense of whether you've got the disease than just taking your temperature.
2 minutes. So we have to wrap this in 2 minutes, Fred. So
quickly, my gosh. Well, what else do you guys want? So
vaccine. Can we talk a little bit about the vaccine progress?
Vaccine. So right now we've got 2 vaccines in phase 3 clinical tests. One group has about 45, that's the Moderna group, has about 4,500 people have already been enrolled. They've already taken their first shot. And Pfizer is the second one. They've got about slightly over 2,000 enrolled in their phase 3. They got to get to 30,000, right? They got a ways to go, but we think that by October they'll have that 30,000. Then they have to wait and get a second shot, and then you got to go out in the environment and see whether or not the placebo guys, the guys who just got the water, get the same amount of test or hopefully more of COVID than the other. And what happens is you got 30,000 guys all going out there, and maybe 20 of them come back on the placebo side, but only 10 of them come back on the with COVID on the active side. That means you've got a 50% benefit, and that means the FDA will give us the approval for that. But it's going to take till certainly after the election, certainly after, I guess we'll have some kind of March time frame.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it at that. We'll get you back on the show next week, and we can do a follow-up on some of this stuff. One of the things I want to have you talk about is I saw a study on masks. There was 14 different types of masks you can get. Which one's the most effective? We can cover that next week.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's do that. I'm curious about that one myself.
Yes, we'll do that. And looking forward to it, because that's a big piece. A mask is not a mask. It's not a mask. There are different capabilities that these masks have, and it's important that we start to move up the scale to get to 40 and 90. But apply for everybody. Right now, we're supply constrained is a problem.
And if
All
you
right,
want,
folks, we'll come back here at 2 p.m. Eastern time next Monday, and we'll talk about mask effectiveness.
We'll do
which
it.
is a
Look
hot
forward
topic
to it.
these days.
and if you want to check out Fred, he's at fredbraun.com, by the way. So
Happy to answer any questions.
All right.
we've had a lot of fun today. First week back here after a little break, but we're cruising into August, and we'll keep you informed. This is Mike Brennan.
And Matt Roush.
And you've been watching MITech TV.
Okay,
Thanks,